We're waiting, Councilman Hapgood and Councilman Contract are trying to join by Zoom, so hopefully they'll be up there pretty soon. They're both traveling. Good evening. An adequate notice of this meeting was required, as required by the Open Public Meetings Act, was provided through the posting, mailing, and filing of the annual notice of regularly scheduled meetings of the Town Council on December 12th, 2023. The notice was, on that date, posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building, provided to the Westfield Leader and the Star Ledger, and filed with the clerk of the town of Westfield. Ms. Lawshe, may I have a roll call?
Mayor Brindle?
Here.
Councilmembers Hapgood? Garcia?
Here.
Domagala?
Here.
Kiefer?
Here.
Saunders?
Here.
Armento?
Here.
Contract? Mackey?
Please rise for the invocation, which will be given by Councilman Kiefer, and remain standing for the salute.
We gather to make decisions for our community. May we use only our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us, and always act in accordance with what is best for our community and our fellow citizens, and not our own egos and sense of pride.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So Jim, whoops, and we have Councilman Hapgood. Can she hear? Can she hear?
She's on.
Oh.
I don't have any specific comments, Mayor, but I think the first thing tonight is the Don Samet's presentation.
Got it, okay,
So Don Samet's presentation for affordable housing.
great, okay, great. So we want to do that now, or after my comments? We'll do it now?
I think maybe do it now.
Oh, okay, great.
Yes, well, good evening, everyone. It's good to be here. Why am I here? Our requirement of our settlement agreement with Fair Share Housing Center, which then became part of our court judgment for our affordable housing plan, and we actually codified it as well, is annually we are required to discuss at a public meeting, we've chosen the council meeting, in the month of February, the efforts we've taken to provide for 20 additional homes, affordable homes, half for families by the construction by nonprofit housing developers. That requirement is part of our approved housing plan. And although my report is brief, I like to not only discuss those efforts, but give you an overview of the status of our affordable housing plan. So a municipality's affordable housing obligation, it's important that we remember it doesn't end with the adoption of our housing plan. We have to implement it. And we have done so or are doing so in a number of ways. We have inclusionary zoning districts, which require, as the name implies, the inclusion of low and moderate income housing in part of those. Examples of some of those districts include the Williams Nursery site, the Parker site, and these were actually in place prior to this current housing plan that we have now. They're holdovers from prior plans. We have affordable housing overlay districts in town. These were created as a compliance mechanism under our current plan, and they allow for affordable housing development as an option to the underlying zoning, which in many cases is mixed use or strictly commercial. We do require that affordable units be placed in projects that are approved by a zoning change or a use or density variance granted by the zoning board. We have dedicated funding from our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and I like to always remind everyone that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is funded by development fees. It's not a separate tax on homeowners, and we use some of those funds for the creation of affordable homes by nonprofit housing developers. We also run an affordability assistance program where we provide 3 months rental assistance for affordable units approved under our plan. We have an emergency generator program for nonprofit developers, and we also can buy down or help create very low income units as part of affordable developments. Now, our housing plan implementation has continued smoothly. Just a couple years ago, we had to complete what's called a midpoint review of our housing plan to ensure that it was working. That's a very important step because very often you'll see developers come in and challenge a municipality's housing plan and say, it isn't working, you need to change it to allow me to develop. We had no challenges to our housing plan during the midpoint review. And how affordable housing is occurring in town is part of the summary report, which I know was in your council packets. It's been on our town website now for at least a few weeks. And that report is important because we're required to do it, number one, per our court settlement, or fair share settlement and court order, and it gets submitted to Fair Share Housing Center and it gets submitted to the courts by our Special Affordable Housing Legal Counsel. So what happened in 2023? We saw site plan approvals for projects which resulted in 12 new family affordable units at 500 North Avenue East, 200 South Avenue East, and Westfield Crossing Phase 2. So a total of 12 affordable units there. We saw another household take advantage of our 3-month rental assistance program. So we've had 6 separate awards to date under that program. And the big one in 2023, which I believe everyone's very proud of, is that we saw the adoption of the American Legion Redevelopment Plan, which paved the way for 22 units of affordable housing for veterans. So, and then of course, just this year approved the redevelopment agreement to see that project come to fruition. But in 2023, we saw the adoption of the plan, which paved the way for that. Specifically for our nonprofit program, again, we have a responsibility to work with nonprofits to provide 20 additional homes. By our court-approved plan again, we have housing, Affordable Housing Trust Fund dollars dedicated to that. And we have provided funding to assist with the creation of 8 special needs housing units with nonprofit developers since the program's inception. Interestingly, I was just talking to Mr. Fasaro, who will be working with one of those nonprofits in the future. We've also dedicated, again, funds to nonprofits for emergency generator program. We are also required to host an annual meeting with nonprofits, and we do that in December of each year. We had a number of nonprofits come and speak with us. The greatest hurdle we're seeing for nonprofits in creating affordable developments anywhere, but especially in communities like Westfields that are well served by mass transit, are land costs. Whenever they go to seek out, or whenever they find an available property, they're usually outbid on it. And we saw that at least a few times over the past few years, where nonprofits have been eyeing a property, they've spoken to us, and they were simply outbid on it. So they very often look to communities and say, well, what land does the town have available? What land does the municipality have available? Well, we're land poor. We don't have the land to offer up for nonprofits. We have slivers of vacant land, nothing really that's buildable. So they've asked us to perhaps look at a way where we can amend our program to make it where it's sort of like a pre-approval for a mortgage. We're approved funding for the organization prior to them having an actual piece of land or property to purchase. This way they can bring that to their lenders and say, hey, we already have dedicated funding from the town. So really our housing plan is going well. We've taken all the necessary steps to provide that realistic opportunity to provide affordable housing in town in accordance with our court-approved housing plan. And I always like to sort of conclude with what I call a public service announcement, and that's for anyone who's listening or watching. If you're looking for an affordable unit, and there is great demand in New Jersey, there are 2 places you can look online. One is through an organization that we use. They act as our administrative agent, and they handle all the application for Westfield affordable units, as well as many other municipalities throughout the state. And the website you can look to for that is affordablehomesnewjersey.com. And it's, New Jersey is spelled out completely, affordablehomesnewjersey.com. You can fill out a pre-application. You can get on waiting lists for all the affordable units that they have in their system. Another excellent online resource is the New Jersey Housing Resource Center, and you'll find affordable housing listed from throughout the state. And these are both for rental and ownership opportunities. So I'm pleased to say that we're doing well, that our plan is working well. We have our next affordable round coming up shortly. And we think that the work that we've done so far is going to help us very well for that next round. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's really where we are. A brief overview for you.
Thank you, Don. I'll just add, I was in Trenton today in my capacity as an executive. I said I was in Trenton today in my capacity as an executive with the New Jersey League of Municipalities, and this is top of mind, the 2025 affordable housing legislation that is going to be our fourth round of negotiations. And so the pending affordable housing legislation, which I know I addressed our concerns last time, there's a Senate committee meeting to be held on March 22nd. We are advocating for many of the amendments that I had referenced in our last meeting. Just in terms of the need, they've quoted anywhere that the state needs between 200 and 230,000. That's how short we are in affordable units. I think the goal of the next round is 89,000. And for people to understand, in inclusionary housing where 15% of affordable are set aside, that's certainly our ordinance, 89,000 is the equivalent of almost 600,000 units of affordable housing, that needs to be built to deliver 89,000 affordables. So it's a lot. You know, we're trying to do it in a way that makes sense for all of our communities, especially ours. We are land poor, as Don mentioned, but more to come on that. But it's going to be, all of this is mandated to be resolved by, I think, May of next year, right? 25?
Our existing housing plan has, if you will, an expiration date of the end of July 2025.
Yeah,
So,
July.
right.
So we, as a governing body, are going to have to come to agreement on Westfield's affordable housing settlement by next summer. So anyway, thank you, Don, as always, and congratulations on a job well done. So before we get into the agenda tonight, I just want to, Councilman Hapgood is here. Linda, can you hear us? She just said yes. Linda, you're on mute. All right, we'll speak.
Mayor, I am here. I'm sorry. You just asked me a question.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you were here. All good.
Yes, I just wanted to make, I'm sorry that I missed attendance, but I am here.
Great, thank you. So I do have a few highlights that I just want to mention to everybody. First, and very importantly, a big congratulations to two boys Westfield High School teams, the boys swim team and the boys winter track team, for their recent state championship wins. For the boys track team, was it their first state championship in winter track? There's third in a row for them, 2 in a row for the swim team, which is unbelievable. So anyway, they will be recognized at a future council meeting, which is always a kind of a fun thing for us all to do. I also do want to address some updates on 1 Westfield Place. Yesterday, following nearly a year of litigation, we were pleased to learn that the court ruled in favor of the town in the 1 Westfield Place lawsuit initiated by the Westfield advocates. Similar to the favorable ruling we received in the case against the Sophia, the judge's decision was very definitive. It reaffirmed the integrity of the process, our extensive due diligence, and the sound planning advice we received from our exceptional professionals which guided our decision-making. Regardless of how you feel about these redevelopment projects, the recent court decisions in the town's favor should reassure you and all of our taxpayers that we are committed to operating with the utmost integrity and to a process that meticulously follows every legal protocol and is transparent, well-reasoned, and informed. Since the Westfield advocates have been very public with their allegations, most notably that 1 Westfield Place is inconsistent with the master plan, among other claims, I would like to read some excerpts from the judge's ruling into the public record, which specifically addresses them. The plaintiffs contend that increased building heights, building coverage, and increased traffic flow of the redevelopment plan are inconsistent with the master plan, but yet provide no record support. Instead, the record demonstrates that the redevelopment plan addresses permitted uses, building heights, setbacks, and coverage, and other criteria in the redevelopment area, along with a multitude of circulation considerations, including analysis of traffic and pedestrian matters. The redevelopment plan also addresses building design, parking, sidewalks, and streetscapes, and other aspects of the plan, demonstrating how they were consistent with the master plan. As to building heights, the master plan specifically permitted increased heights within the redevelopment area. The record similarly rebuts the plaintiff's contention that increased traffic flow was not appropriately considered. Traffic matters were appropriately considered based upon the analysis of a professional planner and traffic engineer. The plaintiff's burden is to establish that the redevelopment plan is not substantially consistent with the master plan. However, the record demonstrates no inconsistency. As such, the plaintiffs had failed to meet their burden. But most importantly, had the plaintiffs established that the redevelopment plan was not substantially consistent with the master plan, which they did not, the plaintiff's burden is to demonstrate arbitrary and capricious action by the governing body. Here, where plaintiffs contend there was a rush to judgment and rubber stamping, the stipulated facts alone demonstrate an appropriately supported and developed, well-reasoned, careful, and sound decision. In issuing his conclusion, the judge stated that the court finds that the plaintiffs had failed to meet their burden, and the court finds that the record demonstrates that the governing body was not arbitrary, capricious, or unreasonable, and was appropriately and adequately supported by the record. And the full judge's ruling can be found in the One Westfield Place section of our website, and I encourage everyone to read it. It's also important to know that the Westfield Advocates litigation has so far cost taxpayers $70,000 to defend. $50,000 for One Westfield Place and $20,000 for the Sophia. They have now filed an appeal in the Sophia case where taxpayers will once again foot the bill to defend a lawsuit that the advocates themselves have admitted they have little to no chance of winning, while they also continue to solicit donations to support their legal fees in both cases. With that being said, and with the litigation behind us, I want to reassure those who have concerns about One Westfield Place that we hear you. In spite of the heated rhetoric, we have never stopped listening, and neither has Streetworks. As details of the plan are finalized, we continue to look for opportunities to address your concerns within the framework of the redevelopment plan without compromising our complex and favorable financial agreement while remaining true to the original vision for One Westfield Place. Specifically, as Streetworks formalizes potential tenants for their office space, we will be advocating for any compromises that could be considered in their leasing conversations, which can address some of the input we received and still deliver the best possible outcome for Westfield. So moving on to tonight's agenda, we have a few important legislative items to highlight this evening. On the Finance Policy Committee front, we'll vote on a resolution to appoint our construction official, which will authorize a new 4-year term for Frank Buoso. Where's Frank? Frank is an incredibly valued member of our professional staff and has done an exceptional job of overseeing the building department and streamlining many of its processes. If you have required any type of construction permit over the last 2 years, you will have experienced the online permitting system that Frank implemented, the expediency of the process, and the responsiveness of our service-oriented staff as a result of his leadership. So his reappointment is very well deserved. Also in finance, we'll hear a bond ordinance on first reading authorizing the purchase of the single-family home at 1037 Central Avenue on the corner of Central and Sycamore, adjacent to the Firehouse No. 2 property. The owner is finally ready to sell his property that the town has been seeking to purchase for over 15 years to accommodate the future expansion and renovation of Firehouse No. 2 into the new fire headquarters facility. This renovation became a greater priority in the last several years as the existing firehouse became less capable of accommodating new equipment, proper contamination protocols, and female firefighters. Mayor Andy Skibitsky's administration began an assessment process in 2015, which has led to the action we're taking tonight. I also want to clarify that the plans for our new firehouse headquarters are completely independent of the plans for One Westfield Place. Once the new headquarters is completed, which will be years away, the current historic firehouse will serve as the second firehouse indefinitely until an alternate location and funding sources are secured, which may or may not happen, and plans for an adaptive reuse of the historic building are approved. So lastly, on the code review front, we have 2 ordinances on first reading, one to clarify permitted awning sign dimensions and one with recommended amendments to the projecting site ordinance. So we'll vote on a resolution awarding a contract for grinding of brush material following a public bid process. So with that, I think we can move on to the agenda this evening. So may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the Town Council Conference and regular meetings of February 13th, 2024? So moved. So moved by Councilman Mackey, second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Darty. Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? This motion is carried. Now it's time for open discussion by citizens. Anyone may come up to the microphone and speak to the council on any subject on which we have jurisdiction. Please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mayor, Town Council. Stephen Goodman, 322 Arenda Circle. My first question is for Dan Smet. What exactly is affordable housing? What does that really mean? What is the cost to the renter? And is this different for different municipalities? And what size units are considered affordable? That's my first question. Why are we fast-tracking Quimby Place and Squiggle Way versus doing other important projects in town? This particular project was not contractually supposed to happen until much later, at the third phase, if at all. And mainly, I'd like to address the council on procedure. I know that recently, with the code review, there was a discussion about extending talk that we're having right now, that we had before, interplay between the citizens and the council. And I attended the 7 o'clock meeting tonight, and I was very much encouraged by that talk. And I'd like that to be reconsidered for a 10-minute talk, 5 minutes of which will be talk personally, and second, in interplay if necessary. Thank you very much.
Christine Binder, is this okay? 404 Dudley Avenue. Hello, and thank you all for your time tonight. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I did just want to personally thank Councilman Saunders, Armento, Domagala, and Kiefer for taking a significant step in continuing to fight against rising crime in our town and state by introducing Assembly Bill 83806. When I attended the last town council meeting 2 weeks ago, I was hoping to learn a little bit more about this bill, including when it will be voted on and the current status of it. However, the meeting quickly became more about the fact that other council members were upset about the way the bill was introduced. I must admit that I was both surprised and disappointed to hear the conversation go in the direction that it did, because it became politically divisive again and hostile, rather than what I thought would be a non-contentious, bipartisan discussion about a bill that could help serve our community as a whole. As an outsider looking in, I am not really focused on which party or person initiated the bill, which is what we heard a lot about, but rather, I am just appreciative that it was introduced. I also remain very grateful to the Westfield Police Department for all of their continued efforts to help keep our community safe, while I also feel grateful to those who took additional proactive steps to help establish stiffer penalties on criminals, and I think it is fair to be appreciative of both efforts without taking away from the other. Lastly, I want to thank Councilman Kiefer for explaining that vacancies in the judiciary are also a big part of the problem, and for letting us know that making phone calls to the governor and senators to request that more nominations be put up for the Superior Court judges can be helpful as well. I think educating the public on things like this can help empower us as citizens to try and get more involved by doing our small part. So thank you again for that suggestion. In closing, I know that when Councilman Saunders asked the mayor if she was behind the proposed bill, that she hadn't read through it yet. So I was wondering if any of the 4 councilmen who introduced the bill could elaborate a little more tonight on exactly what the bill is intended to do, when they think the bill will be voted on, and the current status of it. I know that some people in the community, including myself, are eager to understand this better, as well as looking forward to your emails with updates and legislative advocacy plans. Thank you again to the entire council for your time and for all that you do.
Neil Brown, 543 Prospect Street. Good evening. I'd like to address our 4 new councilmen. I'm a Westfield resident of 45 years and a Ward 1 constituent. I've had some questions relevant to the social media posts, your social media posts in recent weeks about public safety. I thought it'd be courteous to send questions directly to you, each via email. So I did that on February 14th. But not one of you has seen fit to respond. So now I'll ask these questions here. Did you engage Mayor Brindle and council members Habgood, Mackey, Dardia, and Contract to work cooperatively with you on this issue? If not, why not? Did any of you discuss the issues at the council's Public Safety Committee before publicly issuing your declarations on official town letterhead? If not, why not? Also, did you ever discuss with the mayor and the full council the possibility of enacting an official council joint resolution to forward to the appropriate state legislative committees and the governor's office? Now, since we know Mayor Brindle has already led a successful effort to have state legislation enacted to enhance auto theft penalties, why did you not engage her on this initiative? And by the way, did you ever consider how a Democratic-controlled state legislature, with Democrats chairing relevant committees, would react to this obviously partisan initiative that ignored and excluded the Democratic majority on our council? Did you think about how that might impact our town's reputation for governmental integrity? Those were the questions I emailed to each of you, your council email addresses. Since none of you replied or even acknowledged receipt of my email, I came here to give it another try. Thank you.
Rich Panikiewski, 233 Charles Street. 2 weeks ago, I read a 3-page letter to the mayor and town council. I'm a licensed professional engineer affiliated with the Westfield Advocates for Responsible Development. We have tracked over 20 large construction projects that have been built or approved since 2017. 4 of these projects, the Sophia, 1 Westfield Place, Westfield Crossing, and the Williams Nursery redevelopment site, include large numbers of new dwelling units and small footprints with vertical construction to previously unprecedented building heights. There have been approximately 950 new dwelling units approved for construction, which is in addition to approximately 350,000 square feet of approved non-residential use space. The Westfield Advocates are unaware of any coordinated investigation which takes a cumulative, all-inclusive approach to identify and establish the combined impacts of all planned and approved construction. The Master Plan Reexamination Report, as adopted in 2019, does not incorporate projects like the Sophia and 1 Westfield Place. Such widespread construction will have a major impact on the traffic, infrastructure, and everyday life activities of the town. Although no past benchmarks likely exist, the changes in things like domestic water and electric requirements, sewage flows, pedestrian and vehicular traffic, lighting levels, etc., can be predicted using proven scientific and engineering methods. In response to my letter, Mayor Brindle and Mr. Gildea offered some commentary at the end of the meeting, which I wish to revisit here tonight. Mayor Brindle advised that all of the construction that we see being built is part of the 2017 Affordable Housing Obligation Agreement. Yes, Mayor, approximately 200 units which have been built were a part of that agreement, but that only accounts for roughly 20% of the approximately 950 units that had been approved to be built. I was surprised to hear Mayor Brindle advise that the administration is expecting legislators to tie support for infrastructure improvement to affordable housing obligations. Not only is this unrealistic, but it is impractical and not achievable. There's no direct relationship between the number of new dwelling units being constructed and the number of affordable housing units required. As such, there is no logical metric for legislators to fairly differentiate and delegate support for different projects to different towns. The state has not mandated that approximately 950 new dwelling units and approximately 350,000 square feet of non-residential space be constructed. The state has mandated the minimum number of affordable housing units to be constructed. The rest has been devised and approved by the town. As such, the town bears the responsibility for any required infrastructure upgrades thereof. Mayor Brindle advised that she is part of a council that is looking at development beyond our borders. Mayor, unfortunately, neither you nor the town council has any jurisdiction beyond our borders. Let us participate in and learn from any ongoing joint efforts with other towns. However, let us not rely on those efforts to answer questions regarding what's happening in our town. Cranford, Fanwood, and Scotch Plains do not control what happens here in our town, Mayor Brindle. You and the town council do. Mr. Gildea mentioned the results of an impact study related to police and fire services that was issued this past February. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that study did not include the Sophia or 1 Westfield Place, which, when combined, increased the total number of dwelling units being constructed by a factor of approximately 150%, and also which increased the amount of non-residential developed space in downtown Westfield by approximately 350,000 square feet. Lastly, Mayor Brindle referenced a frequently asked questions resource on the town's website and advised that many answers can be found in that resource. I read through this resource several times. As a licensed professional engineer with almost 40 years of design, construction, forensic investigation, and expert witness testimony experience, I am distressed to report that, in my opinion, very few meaningful technical or budgetary decisions could be derived from the superficial level layman's information that is presented therein. Mayor, I am again hereby presenting the concept and alerting the town to engage in a cumulative impact investigation. This small investment will provide valuable information to current and future capital budget priorities. Thank you.
Good evening, Rob Galgano, 939 Boulevard. To start tonight, I'd like to play a brief audio clip of a statement made in 2023 by then candidate Todd Saunders regarding his father's office building in downtown Westfield. If you'll bear with me.
My dad's been in this building for a very long time. He pays almost $150,000 in property taxes, and he's scared, and I'm scared because I'll probably be one of the people that inherits and helps manage the building. What is this building going to be once 1 Westfield Place comes? What's going to happen to all my dad's renters and all my dad's income and someone that's paid tax and has lived here since Jefferson school days for over 50 years? What's going to happen to him?
As you hear in this clip, Mr. Saunders is concerned about his father's building that he is going to inherit someday. This is in direct opposition to his statements 2 weeks ago that his father is alive and therefore there is no inheritance. So the question I would pose to Mr. Saunders is one that has been asked of politicians since time immemorial. Mr. Saunders, were you lying then or are you lying now? I'd like to remind this council that not too long ago, we had another councilman that had an ethical dilemma. That was former councilman Jim Boyce of Ward 1, who served for a little over 2 years before resigning. The reason he resigned is because he had the misfortune to own a residence between two proposed major construction projects, the Sophia and the Lord and Taylor project. Mr. Boyce felt he had to recuse himself since these were two of the most pressing issues that Ward 1 residents were concerned with at the time. Being unable to participate, he felt he could not adequately serve the ward, and therefore he resigned. At the time, his resignation was applauded on all sides as a shining example of good governance and doing the right thing. In short, Jim Boyce resigned for less. To prevent the appearance of favoritism and self-dealing, at a minimum, Mr. Saunders needs to recuse himself from all matters regarding 1 Westfield Place. The question is, will he do the right thing? Finally, two questions for the mayor. I would like the mayor maybe to discuss further about the firehouse, unless you feel like you adequately covered that. Additionally, I'd also like to hear more about the process to vet legislation. I observed Councilman Saunders attempting to badger you at the last meeting into voting on a crime bill that you were not familiar with. What would have been the correct process for the councilman to take? Thank you.
Good evening, Drew Kellerman, 534 Boulevard. Let me start by saying thank you all for your service. Good evening to everyone. I'm here to speak about the recent lawsuit by Westfield Advocates. Westfield Advocates filed and lost 2 lawsuits against the town of Westfield, leaving the taxpayers on the hook for over $70,000. I, for one, don't appreciate that. And counting, by the way, because now we found out that they appealed. An article in the Leader covered communications by Westfield Advocates admitting that they had no chance at winning the lawsuit. And I quote, "The judge may find in our favor, but it's a long shot. Even if we lose, the courts are so backed up, it will delay the project for 1 to 2 years. That was from Mr. Fusaro. As they expected, they lost the lawsuit, but now are filing an appeal. They also filed and lost a lawsuit against the town regarding 1 Westfield Place. Additionally, the Westfield Advocates raised well over $10,000, the required amount to register with the New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs. Registration shows they failed to follow the state requirements and have refused to register with the state, nor have they submitted their earnings to Consumer Affairs. Last week, Councilman Saunders, Domagalo, Armento, and Kiefer sent a letter to Streetworks on town letterhead indicating changes they'd like to see in light of the judge's decision. In light of the judge's decision, how does the loss of this lawsuit impact your promises to the public and your plans moving forward? While appreciating that Westfield Advocates fully endorsed and campaigned for your entire slate of candidates, knowing they never expected to win the lawsuit, do you support Westfield Advocates moving forward with appeals and increasing costs to the taxpayers? We'd like to know. Thank you.
Good evening, Carla Bonacci, 603 Lawrence Avenue, registered architect, State of New Jersey, New York, professional planner, State of New Jersey, officer of Westfield Advocates. Based on the affordable housing reports, and thank you, Don, for your presentation, we've gone back to read the report in more detail and also to double check the record of past affordable housing approvals. We want to make 2 points. First, we want to clarify the record. The town had already approved sufficient amounts of affordable housing units under the previous administration to meet the current 3rd round affordable housing requirements. And I believe there are about 260 affordable units. The current administration has also approved additional projects of about 352 units and 75 affordable units since 2021 that facilitates developers to further exploit affordable housing provisions to justify maxed out pro formas and advance over-dense development projects. Second, we want to note and ask about the 4 scattered sites of the scattered site redevelopment plan that appear in the affordable housing report in the last 2 years. We as residents have asked about future plans for the scattered site several times in the past year with no update given. And now potential new developments on the scattered sites are being incorporated into the planned affordable housing counts. The 4 scattered sites include approximately 4 acres of land, and there is no forecast on the total number of housing units, only a commitment of AFH percentages. Westfield Advocates from this podium have asked on several occasions what's going on with the 4 publicly owned scattered sites, and there's been no information shared. Why are the 4 publicly owned scattered sites included here? The redevelopment plan does not provide any type of land use or bulk standard requirements or design guidelines. And I brought up what Morristown created. I've brought this up before, the design guidelines they prepared for the entire town of Morristown. Let me see. Is existing zoning going to be overridden by 3 times, as you and the planning board did for the Sophia and 1 Westfield Place? These 4 sites are within 500 to 1,500 feet, about a 2 to 5 minute walk of each other within the tightly knit retail restaurant district. They are also adjacent to the Gap that was just sold to an investment group. Has anyone performed any impact analysis that includes traffic, building massing, and skyline to fit in the existing context? Have you consulted with the adjacent retailers and restaurants like Barron's and the town bookstore? Are you thinking the dilapidating Rialto will just fall down? It's imperative that a cumulative impact analysis be performed and professionals develop guidelines to advise how these projects should be designed to fit contextually with the existing fabric of the downtown. To continue the total loss of downtown character with out-of-scale buildings that are caricatures of architecture, or as Bob Venturi and Denise Scott Brown so aptly coined, decorated sheds, such as Westfield Crossing, Williams Nursery, the Franklin on North, and 1 Westfield Place, would be a huge detriment to the core downtown district, especially where many buildings have been identified with historic character in the draft historic preservation study recently prepared by H2M Easton. Why is everything advanced in a piecemeal, segmented fashion without a full understanding of cumulative impacts on infrastructure and the community, and without an architectural vision that maintains the integrity and soul of the town? At the prior meeting, we asked about the Quimby acceleration. This week, we're asking about the scattered sites. We again call on the town planning staff, the mayor, and council to adopt a community-based planning approach to address these vital issues of redevelopment under the scattered sites. You should want to engage town residents and businesses to actively participate and collaborate on future development goals and visions that can be accepted by most of the town. There is too much at stake for the future of our town to make hasty, developer-driven projects without fully addressing purpose and need, assembling the facts, impacts, and alternatives analyses necessary to make informed decisions regarding public resources and priorities. And lastly, the residents want to actively collaborate with the government in developing these important plans that should not be issued as top-down fait accompli, nor via imposition of standards promoted by special interests who don't have to literally live with the impacts of these policies and projects. Thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, Liz Mahalan, Westfield, New Jersey. I just want to say that I am astounded at what I'm hearing. I mean, the judge's ruling was very clear that this was all done. I also find it just amazing that the master plan hasn't been reviewed. This is affordable housing, and all of these units are all part of our master plan, and the master plan relied heavily on the fact that the affordable units were approved back in 2017, even before this administration. So I just can't believe that we're still having a discussion that the court's already adjudicated. But regardless, that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I just heard somebody that asked about the bill that was being brought up in the Assembly and Senate. And I say this as somebody who attends and has provided testimony at Senate hearings and meetings, Assembly hearings and budget meetings for over a decade. I took a look at the bill that was proposed here, and I have to be honest, I was absolutely floored by what I saw in that bill. The level of thought that went into that bill is never going to make it through the state. I'll give you an example. It was claimed that they created this bill and moved forward on it. And I want to be specific about this. First of all, let me start by saying this. I'm going to go through each of the 4 items since somebody asked the question. It says establishment of a rebuttal presumption of pretrial detention for motor vehicle theft offenses. Now, had anybody done their research, they would know that this was already brought up numerous times at the state by both Democrats and Republicans and in a bipartisan manner. This was not something that's new. This is not something that was just created out of thin air. And in fact, what is most bizarre about it is when it was brought up in the judiciary hearing, it had a full yes vote for it, except for 2 people, and one of which, who chose not to vote, was Senator Bramnick. So I guess you'll have to ask him why he didn't vote for that. You also said that you wanted to have an enhancement for penalties for motor vehicle offenses, elevating them to second-degree crimes regardless of the value of a vehicle. Well, I mean, if we've done our research, we know that the vehicles getting stolen are all already second-degree offenses. So what are we saying? They're not here to steal 1985 Honda Civics. We know this, so what is the point of that bill? Another one is that you want to ask for home detention for minors that commit car thefts. And you want to remove a license for somebody who has committed car thefts. These are people who are working with international criminal crime rings that are racing through the streets with stolen cars. Do we honestly think that anybody here believes they care about a driver's license, nor the minors who aren't even eligible to get a driver's license, who are out at 2 o'clock in the morning? Do you think that they're afraid of their mommies keeping them at home? I also don't understand how this bill helps. We know that there hasn't been, by the way, car thefts are down in this town. And to my understanding, there hasn't been a car theft yet to date, which is not normal. This is good. This is a good, positive thing. So obviously, we've been dealing with the car thefts, and that's a great thing. So what happens? People are keeping their key fobs in their houses, and what happens when that happens? They they do home burglaries. So my question then is, how does any of this help the home burglaries? Because that seems to be what this new council is really concerned about. And I will tell you that not one of these things helps home burglaries. What's going to help home burglaries is for us to get more judges so that these cases can be heard, and so we can take these dangerous criminals off the street. But that's not what you're doing. You're not working with the mayor. You're not working with the chief, who have vociferously been pushing for this. And if you really want to help, and you really care about this issue, then maybe you'll do the research, and maybe you'll get behind the mayor and the chief, and you'll join them so that we can all, as a town and as a group, in a bipartisan manner, just like they do at the state, work together to get stuff done. Because this bipartisan stuff, it's not going to work. It's just not. And this is not what the residents want. So I would really prefer that we get educated on these issues and that you work together and we just stop the grandstanding. I know that you knew. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you're trying to make your mark. That's wonderful. I'm glad you're so motivated. But be careful. Summit just went through a whole situation where they had a new council, also very excited. Yay, this is great. We're going to pass a crime bill. Well, unfortunately, they passed a crime bill that is actually a violation of state law and something that was adjudicated. They didn't bother going through process. It is so important that you follow the process because this protects us taxpayers from lawsuits that needn't happen. So please, you're all great people. Just work together and make sure that we follow the process instead of just throwing things out there and trying to bully someone into voting for something they've never seen.
I'm sorry, Ms. Mulholland.
Oh,
you're out
I'm
of
so
time.
sorry.
It's
Anyway,
okay.
I want to thank you all because I know you're all here trying to do the right thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Frank Fusaro, 422 Stanley Avenue, Westfield. Just want to clarify several items that were discussed here this evening. One of them being some of the verbiage that the mayor read from the recent court decision. And the reasoning that she gave was that the OWP project is consistent with the master plan. The OWP project is not consistent with the master plan. You circumvented the master plan by using redevelopment law. So I want to make that perfectly clear. Had the project been proposed under the current zoning in the town of Westfield, it would not meet the zoning standard. The mayor and council chose to use redevelopment law to circumvent all the town zoning, period. That is a fact. In addition, as I mentioned in the conference session earlier, I had asked why the town of Westfield has not asked the developer to contribute towards a new firehouse, which the town will be required to build in the future. This firehouse will cost approximately $15 million or more. Since the mayor seems to be very concerned about the legal fees that were expended by the town with respect to the lawsuits, I would also ask that it is our understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that in the development agreements with the developers for OWP and possibly the Sophia as well, that the developer is required to absorb all legal fees in any litigation pertaining to those developments. Please let me know if that is correct or incorrect, because you keep saying that it costs the township $70,000 to represent themselves in legal fees. However, it's our understanding that those fees should be reimbursed to the town from the developer. And I would really like to know why, as I mentioned, the developer was not asked to contribute to the town by way of a new firehouse, a new municipal building, a new park, a new recreation center, a new field, anything. That is customary throughout the state of New Jersey with any developer. So please address that situation. Thank you and have a good evening.
Allison Carey, 408 East Dudley Avenue. I just want to make a couple comments as well about the litigation. Unfortunately, we don't agree with one judge's decision. That's the way it goes. What is really unfortunate is what got us there. The fact that you ignored your residents. We had residents night after night stand in this chamber, lined up to the back of the door, asking you to meet them halfway. Halfway. All of them were ignored. Petitions were ignored. Requests for a referendum that would just be an opinion poll were ignored. I sat at this podium twice, at least twice or three times, with a list of 35 detailed and very specific financial questions about One Westfield Place from people, financial professionals that live in this town who were extremely concerned. None of them have been answered. Meetings were canceled. Promises to respond to those questions in writing have not been addressed. So night after night after night, week after week, for 9 months, the people of this town asked you to meet them halfway, and you didn't. Unfortunately, that's what led to litigation. We're not three people here who are just having fun filing lawsuits. We're doing it on behalf of people who are trying to help. And thankfully, the people of the town made their own decision with 4 new council members who hopefully are going to bring some balance to this council. Thank you.
I just want to, Marcy Bandelli, 209 Tuttle Parkway, Westfield. I just want to say that I am really in favor of One Westfield Place. I think many people in the town are really in favor of it. I know we only hear the negative about it, but I have a lot of friends who I talk to. I've lived here for 23 years. I'm excited. I just need to put that out there. We have a court process that already adjudicated this issue, and we need to start rocking and rolling, right? We've had a lot of obstruction around this, and there's a lot of people like me, and I know, I know what people are gonna say. Well, the election, I get it. It was a low turnout election, but there's a lot of people that feel the way I do. So I'm just putting it out there on the record, and I have one more thing to say. This comment is directly, I'm going to direct it to my my Ward 1 council member, Mr. Saunders. I find it really kind of surprising that you're still a moderator on the Westfield, New Jersey page. It's a page that I left a long time ago. I just feel like now that you have your own kind of Facebook page and you're a councilman and you have your own kind of forum, that you really shouldn't be on that page. There's 23,000 people, and anybody who doesn't agree with your views or a Republican view is either tossed or comments are removed. And it's a bad look. So I think that you should seriously, I'm not trying to be petty. This is an important page. Voices need to be heard. When I got onto it, I thought it was a town page. I didn't know that it was a private Facebook page. And if there was a Democratic council person as a moderator, I'd have a hard time with that. It's a bad look. It's inappropriate. As my Ward 1 councilman, I hope that you consider that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Jessica Rinaldi, 150 Harrison Avenue, Westfield. I really didn't plan to speak tonight, but just hearing everything that's going on with people coming up, I just want to give my opinion that I'm very excited about Westfield 1. I've lived in this town for 33 years. I'm a senior citizen. I am also a crossing guard in this town for 18 years, and I'm very excited about what's happening to our town. And I'm tired of the bickering. I wish we could all get along and just move forward, and so we can see the beautiful things that this town right now I'm experiencing with all the shops that have been opened up. I mean, it's like a revitalization, okay? And when I moved here in 1991, the town was sort of dying. And then we had the stores that came, like Williams-Sonoma, like the mall stores, and that was great for a while. And then everything came down. But kudos to this town council and everybody to get us through this pandemic, because it was really terrible what we had to go through. But anyway, I'm digressing. I just wanted to say that thank you, everyone, and the new people that entered. I hope we can all get along and work together for the betterment of the whole town, because I, for one, do not want to leave this town. I want to stay here till I go. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay. Hearing none, I close this portion of the meeting, any public comments, and just give me a minute to go through that. Don, Sam, I hope you wrote down Mr. Goodwin's questions. Okay, I figured you did, so maybe you would address. And so some of the other comments that people made about affordable housing in general, maybe you could just try and address them as well.
I heard, for the gentleman, I heard two questions. Essentially, what is affordable housing, and is there a required unit size? So affordable housing is really defined by housing that's considered affordable to households that make them a certain percentage of median household income within one of 6 housing regions within the state of New Jersey. So Westfield is in housing region number 2, which includes Essex, Morris, Union, and Warren counties. So the median household income for a 4-person household, just using that as an example, is $123,829. So affordable housing is sort of the term that's commonly used. It's also often referred to as low and moderate income housing, and there are specific definitions for those terms, low and moderate, and even very low. So a moderate income household, which is considered a affordable housing, affordable home. Moderate income is between 80 and 50% of median income. Low-income housing is 50% or less of median income, and very low income is considered 30% or less of median income. So again, using my four-person household example, we have 2023 numbers, 2024 hasn't come out yet. But a four-person median household income in our housing region, $123,829. A moderate income four-person household has an income of $99,063. A low-income four-person household, $61,914. And a very low-income four-person household, $37,149. To the second question.
And I'm sorry, Don, you may say this, and it varies by market. Like what's in Westfield will be different than what it is someplace else, correct?
Well, for the region, it'll stay.
Okay.
The housing costs remain and the median remains for our region. As far as the size of units, the folks who drafted up the affordable housing rules were sure that to write into the rules and regulations that you can't have all one-bedroom or studio affordable units. They wanted to ensure a mix of household sizes. So the rules require that you can have no more than 20% of the total number of affordable units as efficiency or one bedrooms. At least 30% of the affordable units need to be two bedrooms, and at least 20% of the affordable units need to be three-bedroom units. So there are income limits to qualify for affordable and affordable housing, low, moderate, and very low. And there is a required bedroom distribution mix for affordable units. I hope that answers the questions of the gentleman.
And Don, I think there was one more question that Ms. Bonacci asked about if we already met our affordable housing third round, why are we doing more? So if I'm paraphrasing.
Our opinion is that we have, right? And when we went through our last affordable housing plan preparation and our ultimately our settlement with Fair Share Housing Center, there was a lot of back and forth with Fair Share on this. We feel that we have met it. We have met all of our prior round obligations. We've met our rehabilitation obligation. What wound up being our third round obligation that we had to create all these affordable housing zones for, overlay zones for, was to address unmet need. And we had to provide, again, a realistic opportunity. So we have, by adoption of our plan, and it's court approved, we have met our obligations in that we have provided the opportunity to allow for the construction of affordable units in accordance with our court-approved plan. So we've met it. Now, what our numbers will be in the next round, we're not sure yet, but I think we're on very firm footing with what we've done so far.
And so just to paraphrase, so even if we met the baseline number that they've been provided, we still have an obligation to prove that we're providing a realistic opportunity for the unmet need.
That's correct.
And I think that's where people get a little bit lost on that. We can't just say we're not trying anymore. We have an obligation and we have to prove the measures we've taken to do that.
We have to prove we can do it, and if we can't, we have to prove that.
Why we can't.
Why we can't. For example, we've shown that we have very little vacant land to develop, so that allows us to take our number lower than what a municipality, say, that just made up of farmland would have to provide for.
Thank you, Don. And just to go through, I know there was some questions on the crime bill. I don't know, for one, would prefer not to relitigate what crime bills were supported in our resolution and so forth, but I mean, I think we're all in a good place. I do want to say that when I was in Trenton today, I did talk to the league to get a summary of all the crime bills that are currently under consideration. And just for the record, there's 9 assembly bills currently, and there are 7 bills in the Senate. I'll be honest with you, a lot of them generally kind of say the same thing. There's a few that are directed to catalytic converters. So there is also includes the bill that these gentlemen referenced. Senator Bramnick recently added a companion bill. There's no text associated with his. It hasn't really gone anywhere. So I think the plan is that the league will take a position on each of these bills. I think you wait till they get to committee, and I think as Ms. Mulholland referenced, some bills have a better shot of moving forward than others. And you hope that maybe they take kind of the best of some of these bills and put it into one. But the ones that do the best are those that have bipartisan sponsorships. And those are a little bit harder to come by. So, but anyway, I'll continue to stay on top of this, all the legislation as it moves through, and to the degree that we think we can, there's a specific bill that everybody's rallying around, that we think in consultation with like the county prosecutor and the police chief and our council, that is the one that makes the most sense for Westfield. We can decide if we want to take action on one of those bills that moves forward. So, I don't know. Yes, Councilman.
I'll wait till you're finished.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
On the topic of property, I don't
Yeah.
want to move off it, because there were some specific things raised, and I just want to speak to it. Agree with everything you said, by the way. So there were questions on both the substance of the bill and also the process by which it came about, and I'd like to just talk a little bit about that. On the substance, it's important to note, I mean, it's obvious, but in some of the comments, it didn't seem like it was, that this is a bill that's in the state legislature. Okay, it's not before us. The mayor is not going to vote it. None of us are going to vote on it, so no one's voting on this. And the second thing to note is how the bill came about. It was the product of a piece of advocacy that myself and the new councilmen signed on to. We wrote a letter, and we sent it to the state legislatures for our district, the Assemblywomen and Senator Bramnick. We copied the governor and the attorney general. And it was not put this in a bill. It was do something at the state level because we're seeing a big problem here, and here are some suggestions. Now, the first suggestion off the bat was fill the judiciary. All right, fill the judiciary. It's not part of the bill, but that was, to me, one of the biggest problems that's going on. It also had to talk about enforcement, which is why the Attorney General was copied. To Ms. Mulholland's point, there are organized criminal rings that are driving this problem, and we wanted something to be done to that effect. Also, to Ms. Mulholland's point, the rebuttable presumption that we brought up, we specifically cited to Senator Scutari's bill, which does the same thing. So she's absolutely right. It didn't need to be done from scratch. And frankly, I don't care who gets credit for it. We wanted something done. So what we did, I just want to be clear on what we did, was we advocated. We advocated, just like any of you could do. You could do the same thing. We also made very clear in the letter, it was not the voice of this council. We made very clear of that fact. Now, on the process point, had I known then that we'd be sitting here right now talking about this, and that my fellow council members would have felt alienated by our actions, I would have done things differently, and I would have discussed it with them. You're shaking your head, but why ask me a question if you're not going to believe what I'm going to say? That's the truth, all right? So, and I've had discussions with them after this. So I can only speak for myself on that point, but I can say that the benefit of this is that we're all sitting here talking about the state needing to do something about crime, and I think that's productive. Now, whether or not the bill goes anywhere, the mayor knows more than I do. I don't know what goes on in the bowels of the State House. Hopefully something good comes of it.
So thank you for that, and I agree. At the end of the day, I don't know which bill will end up moving forward, but the good news is there are lots of bills under consideration, both on the Assembly and the Senate side, which I'm sure ultimately will hopefully get us to where we need to go. Just one other thing, Mr. Goodman, I know you mentioned about, the engagement with the community. There you are. So no, that's exactly what the purpose is of the conference session. So I was glad to see you there anytime you want that. The purpose of this it's not a town hall, it's not a Q&A. It's about trying to move legislation forward and get people to comment on the public record. Usually it's about legislation that's being considered, but it could obviously be about anything. So the Q&A is as you experience in the conference session is exactly that. So please come and every week. That's so. Let's see. And then just on Mr. Fasaro, you mentioned about legal fees. We did not have a financial agreement with the developer for the Sophia, so the town taxpayers were absolutely on the hook for any litigation. And you are right, in the One Westfield Place, the Streetworks was responsible for the litigation. We wrote that in the redevelopment. They paid for the litigation. Taxpayers were on the hook for our professionals and our presence there. So we spent $50,000 of our money. I can only imagine, don't know how much street work spent on litigation to defending it. So it is never free, ever. And in this case, it was $70,000 that it cost taxpayers. And you mentioned, why aren't they giving us a firehouse? The firehouse was always contemplated, but that's why we negotiated. What are we getting? You mentioned the park, we're getting 2 plazas. We're getting a ton of public improvements, 10 traffic intersections, et cetera, knowing that the firehouse and equipment were always contemplated prior to One Westfield Place. It makes most sense to keep them in that consideration and use this process to generate other public benefits that we would be able to, that would realize the ultimate benefit of the entire community. And I don't know, Mr. Saunders, I know that I don't know if you had wanted to address any of the comments that were addressed to you.
Yeah, if I may.
Okay, sure.
Just to address Mr. Galgano's comments about inheritance that we continue to talk about. The majority, I don't know the number, but I think it's the majority of Westfield residents own property in Westfield. And One Westfield Place is going to impact everyone's property values, whether that's a homeowner, a business owner, or the town that owns property. Values will change, but when I made those comments, it's about we should all play by the same rules, right? Current business owners should have the same rules, whether it's my dad or a different business owner, should play by the same rules that One Westfield Place has to play by, and that means height, that means zoning, that means all of it. You continue to ask me, you come up here to ask me to step down because my family invested in the town. I continue to say we want people to invest in the town. I would encourage every councilman, every person out there to continue to invest in the town, continue to open up businesses, continue to buy businesses, and we shouldn't be putting people down for doing that. I actually think we should be propping them up. Okay. You also continue to ask me to recuse myself, and I would say again, I don't know, I think a lot of people on this council own property, as in they own a house, whether it's close to town or not close to town, whether they live in town, which some do. I'm wondering why you continue to come after me and not everyone who owns a house up here to recuse themselves. And I'll end with this. Listen, we're all up here, civil service, working hard to talk about One Westfield Place. We may agree, we may disagree. We're talking about vehicle thefts. Can we please get off the topic of someone's personal finances and inheritance and get to real topics here? That's my first ask. And my second ask is there's a lot of business owners, some that are here, some that might be here in the future, and I hope you don't ask them the same questions and ask them to recuse themselves every time they're up here because they invested in opening a business downtown.
So, all right, so, okay, so I'm sorry. Let's, I think, okay, I think and I'll just say the last thing that seemed to come up a couple times with this impact study, I think this comprehensive impact study, and I'm just gonna, it might not be what you wanna hear, but I'm gonna tell you it again. We did an impact study on resources and so forth that I think Jim had directed to you on the website. And I know you had mentioned, you said something about it does, we're responsible for within the borders. We are. But what happens beyond the borders also impacts what's happening in Westfield and vice versa. So we are doing a quarter impact study, and we believe that's sufficient to deliver on what you've been asking. And that's what we're going to continue to do. So with that, we are going to move on to bills and claims. Councilman Domagala acting for Councilman Contract this evening.
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. I just want to make sure. I don't know if he can read or not. Councilman Contract, I just want to make sure you're there. Can he hear? Yeah, unmute yourself, David, if you're there. Do you want Councilman Domagala to read on your behalf? Okay, that's what we're going to do. All right, sounds great. We got it.
All right, thank you,
All right,
Mayor.
Councilman Dolan, you're on.
Thank you, Councilman Contract. I'd like to move to bills and claims in the amount of $313,295.86.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Armento, I think. Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Opposed? This motion is carried. Next on the agenda is reports of standing committees, beginning with the Finance Policy Committee. Councilman Domagala.
Thank you. I have 11 resolutions, 10 of which I'd like to move as a package. Resolution 1, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to refund Recreation Department fees. 2, resolution authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to draw warrants for participant payment to Westwood for the annual Me and My Gal Dance. Number 3, resolution authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to draw a warrant for dog licenses for January 2024. Number 4, resolution authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to draw a warrant for the Board of Adjustment escrow monies. Number 5, resolution authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to draw warrants for overpaid taxes. Number 6, resolution authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to draw warrants pursuant to Tax Court of New Jersey. Number 7, resolution authorizing the tax collector to cancel sewer fee balances. Number 8, resolution authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to issue warrants for special district taxes. Number 9, resolution authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to issue warrants for Union County open space taxes. And number 10, resolution to appoint the construction official.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Dardia. Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? And I just want to say congratulations to
Yeah, I just want to say congratulations to Frank, and
Frank.
again, as you said, Mayor, Frank has really transformed the building department. So. And Frank started, like, some of our department has started in 2020, really as COVID just started. So to deal with what he's had to deal with there as a new employee and then do what he did, again, I just want to publicly commend him. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Frank, for all your efforts. So this motion has carried. Congratulations. Next, I would like, I'm sorry, I'm reading your lines.
Thank you, Mayor, again. Next, I'd like to move a resolution authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to adopt a temporary capital budget.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Saunders. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmembers Hapgood,
Yes.
Dardia,
Yes.
Domagala,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Saunders,
Yes.
Armento,
Yes.
Contract,
Contract?
Yes. Mackey?
Yes.
Mayor Brindle?
Yes, this motion has carried.
All right. And last, I'd like to move a special ordinance number 2024-01 on first reading. Bond ordinance to authorize the acquisition of real property for future use in connection with the expansion of the fire department facilities in and by for the town of Westfield in the county of Union, New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $725,000 to pay a cost thereof, to make a down payment to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds.
May I have a second? Second. Second by Councilman Mackey. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmembers Hapgood,
Yes.
Dardia,
Yes.
Domagala,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Saunders,
Yes.
Armento,
Yes.
Contract, yes. Mackey? Yes. Mayor Brindle?
Yes, this motion has carried. Next up is Code Review and Town Property Committee. Councilman Mackey.
Thank you, Mayor.
I would like to make a motion authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract to purchase of real estate.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Dardia. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmembers Hapgood,
Yes.
Dardia,
Yes.
Domagala,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Saunders,
Yes.
Armento,
Yes.
Contract, yes. Mackey?
Yes.
Mayor Brindle?
Yes, this motion has carried.
Next, I would like to move General Ordinance Number 2024-05 on first reading, an ordinance to amend the land use ordinance of the town of Westfield to clarify permitted awning sign dimensions.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman, who said
Other
that?
one.
Kiefer? Kiefer?
I'm not that fast.
I'm sorry. Don't
It's
you
like that
fight,
game show here.
fight over it.
left it on.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmembers Hapgood,
Yes.
Dardia,
Yes.
Domagala,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Saunders,
Yes.
Armento?
Yes.
Contract? Yes. Mackey?
Yes.
Mayor Brindle?
Yes, this motion has carried.
Last, I would like to move General Ordinance Number 2024-06 on first reading, an ordinance to amend certain provisions of the land use ordinance of the town of Westfield related to projecting signs And Mayor, for the public, I just want you to understand, these are the decorative blade signs that we see in downtown Westfield. We're just amending our existing ordinance.
And they're charming, too.
We hope that they're charming to everybody.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Kiefer. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmembers Hopgood,
Yes.
Dardia,
Yes.
Domagala,
Yes.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Saunders,
Yes.
Armento.
Yes.
Contract. Yes. Mackey,
Yes.
Mayor Brindle.
Yes, this motion has carried. Councilman Mackey, please move Public Works Committee resolutions.
I would like to move a resolution award contract for the 2024 grinding of brush material.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Saunders. All these men up here, I can't. Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? This motion has carried. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved by Councilman Mackey, second.
Second.
Second by Councilman Dardia. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? This motion is carried, and this meeting is adjourned.